What's going on, everybody? Chris Clothier here with REI Nation, going live in our Facebook group. And look, I wanted to go live. It's been a little while since I've gone live into the group. I wanted to go live today to bring you guys just some updated statistics on how we finished the year out, especially on the rental side, because that's such a big piece of what we talk about, especially in this group. Give you as a group my perspective, some of my perspective anyway, on the year we just came through and kind of what we can expect going forward, and even some, I won't say philosophy changes because that's not it at all, but just kind of what I think about what's happening right now in the real market, in the real estate market is a better way to put it, and even kind of the perception of new investors, existing investors, and what we should and should not expect from the next year. So look, number one, thank you for joining me. Anybody that's on here watching live, those of you that'll watch later on, everybody, I appreciate all of your input. I appreciate any of your reactions to this. I'm not super good. Anybody that watches my YouTube videos knows that I don't spend a lot of time saying watch this or like this or give me thumbs up and subscribe to my channels. I have to do that because it's part of, I think, what you have to say today in YouTube videos, but it's just not one of those things with me. But I say this with all humility, that if this is good, it provides value, interact with me. Come on in, and it doesn't have to be later. You know, you can ask a question anytime or leave a comment anytime, and I'm happy to respond within the group. So we'll see if we get some of that coming off of this. So look, guys, it doesn't take a lot of time from me, a lot of insight from me to tell you that 2022 was tough. Man, that was such a weird investment year for so many of us, both in the business and as investors. What made it so odd for us as a company was that there's a lag time in what we do. So we buy properties in the first quarter that we anticipate being done with renovations sometime in the second quarter, maybe because of the size of the job, it would be early third quarter. And then we place a resident into that. Roughly, it takes about another month. So you're talking about a little bit more of an extension. And then we begin to market it out to our clients as an investment property that they can purchase for their portfolio. That lag time, you know, look, for lack of a better way to put it, it caught us as I know it caught a lot of investors. What we found was, you know, what we were expecting and what we were seeing in the market January, February, March, April was completely different by the time August came around. By the time August came around, the floor had fallen out of the investment market in terms of the floor had fallen out of the confidence level in the investment market. So many investors were questioning, man, is this a good time to buy? Is it not? I'm getting mixed signals. I got one economist saying this, another economist saying that. You've got all these investment banks that are putting out thought papers and different ideas, and so many people were talking about the national real estate market like it's this big, like there's this one real estate market in the United States, and they're making these overarching predictions like the housing market is going to crash and we're going to see 20% declines. And, you know, it's very, very confusing. I did a lot of talking about this in the fourth quarter, and we released some articles about it, that there was just a lot of mixed signaling going on. But the reality was this, that what we do when we buy properties to hold for long term, or we decide to invest in real estate long term, we're looking to own a piece of real estate that somebody else values. They value living in it. They value what it provides to them. For us, it's an investment. For the resident, it's providing something. It's providing something of value. That is a roof over their head, a nice neighborhood to live in, access to schools, access to jobs, all these different reasons why residents look to live in certain places. So we as investors, what we're doing is we're buying property that somebody else finds valuable. They find what it produces and gives them as valuable. None of that changed. That didn't change at all through the year. I mean, the fact that these properties were still valuable, that remains strong. For us as a company, demand for rental real estate and great service, that remained at an all-time high. So what was facing big challenges was the sentiment that we have as investors, because a lot of first-time investors said, I'm out. I have no interest in getting involved in this market. I'm going to wait for the market to tank, and then I'm going to come in like a hero and buy everything super cheap. Guess what? I mean, that obviously that has not happened, and it's not going to happen. There's so many pieces to an individual real estate market that those pieces aren't present, or they're not. Those pieces aren't lined up for massive price declines in the market. So we didn't see prices tumble in most, especially in the markets that we're in. They haven't tumbled. Foreclosures didn't suddenly jump through the roof when interest rates went up. Did we see a slowdown in rents? Yeah, and I'll get to that here in 1 second. But it was primarily because the access to easy money on the rental side, it slowed down. So a lot of the government-funded programs that had propped up our economy over the last couple of months and helped, in a lot of ways, many renters, perhaps it helped them stay in houses that were just slightly out of their reach, and in other cases, it prevented some residents from being able to get into a property because as that money was pulled back from the government. So, look. The reality is that there's almost like this dichotomy where everyone thought one thing was going to happen with the real estate market. And in some respects, because they thought it was going to happen, it did. In other respects, many things that investors and economists and whoever else was willing to talk about it, pundits, what they said was going to happen in the market, it didn't. And so we find ourselves today, February of 2023 today, with a higher interest rate that most of us haven't experienced. I have, because I was investing back in the early 2000s, but a lot of investors haven't experienced these interest rates yet. There's kind of a new normal that's beginning to take shape and take place, and investors are beginning to realize that here's the one big takeaway. If you provide a home that a resident finds valuable, you will always have a property that's occupied. No matter what happens with maintenance or kind of, here and there, or even if you have move outs and turnovers, there will always be demand for what you provide. There will always be somebody else that is paying down your investment. They are paying you back. So someone else's money is literally making your note for you and allowing you to earn a return against that property. That's the fundamental that hasn't changed. Does the money cost more? So therefore there's less of a spread on what we're borrowing versus what we're paying? Absolutely. Yeah, rents have not gone up so strong. They haven't gone up as strong as borrowing costs. Borrowing costs more than doubled. In many cases, borrowing costs went up almost 150%. Rents went up 12. So that spread now, it's not where it was. You kind of want to say that, hey, for some of us, it was the really, really good times. For those of us that were buying houses from 17 to really 21, we got great interest rates, better rates than what we're having today. Okay, that's fine. No big deal. Today, we have to get used to a new normal, but the fundamentals of real estate haven't changed. I don't see housing prices crashing. The markets that we're in, the price point we're in, that's what's so specific. The price points we are in, what we're targeting in every single city we're in, are the ones that are holding value the best. They're not the highest and they're not the lowest. In many markets, the highest price points are the ones that are seeing big price declines, big percentage declines. The lower price points are the ones that are, in my opinion, they're seeing the toughest time. The only people buying the super cheap stuff in any market are investors, oftentimes out-of-state investors that don't fully understand the risks associated with buying the bottom of a market. I've been there. Believe me, I've done it. I know what the risks are, and you don't want to buy the bottom of a real estate market. You want to stay as close to the median price points as you can. I would say the two middle quartiles of a market. So in other words, not the lowest 25% of a marketplace, not the highest 25%. You want to stay in the middle, right there, 25% either side of the middle of a market, the median home price of a market. If you can manage to accomplish that this past year and even going forward, I think you're going to be in the right spot. Let me give you some data, okay? And let me tell you why, again, we are very, I'm not sure if the word is bullish, but we are very optimistic. cautiously at some things, but sure, but optimistic for the market for going into next year. I got my trusty little note sheet here to make sure I get all these notes right. Last year, our team renewed 2,661 leases. Each of those leases were going to expire. And once they expired, that property was going to go vacant. It might possibly go on a month-to-month contract for a short period of time, but that is a risky contract that eventually will go vacant. So what we look to do is get an expiring contract onto another long-term contract. 2,661 move-outs were prevented by us. 2,661 homes were going to go vacant. We prevented that move-out from happening. In the process of preventing that move-out, we saved our owners, we guesstimate somewhere between $8 and $9 million. I believe the number is going to come out to a little closer to $9 million. That includes not having to lose any rent on a property due to vacancy, not having to spend any money on a property to bring it back to market condition to rent it again, and then not having to pay us as a management company the first month's lease-up fee to put a new resident into the home. So by not having any of those expenses, our investors saved, and I believe strongly, it's north of $9 million. Whenever I get asked the question of, hey, you're a turnkey company, you're obviously out to make a profit. You mark up the house, then you manage it. You're making money all the time. How is that congruent with what I want as an investor? How are your, desires and outcomes aligned with my desires and outcomes? And a lot of investors, that's a very fair question. And it's one that investors should ask. You should ask it to every, especially a management company, because management is difficult. Management is hard to make money at. Well, as I've explained in this group many, many times, for us, we are a profitable company, but it's because we have multiple different profit centers. We've reached scale. Scale is a massive game changer in this. And not only have we reached scale, but we've reached, several layers of scale. We're managing just shy of 8,000 properties at this point. We sell each property that we manage, and yes, we are profitable when we sell homes. That's something that we need to do. Each home itself is profitable. Now, once we factor in all the costs to run our company, sometimes not so much. But hey, but we are a profitable company. We made the choice again this year. We've done this for a while, but this was a big decision for us this year, to hold the line. Even though sales were down, even though profitability was down, even though it was a market where, because the lag, we took a few gut punches on the sales side, because we were buying 100 homes a month back in February, and demand in August was not for 100 homes a month. Understandable. So in all of that atmosphere, we still chose to renew 2,661 leases rather than let them go vacant. It was core value number one. Do the right thing. That's the right thing for our investors who bought these homes from us to begin with. It's the right thing. Renew those leases. Over the past 24 months, we have renewed 5,674 leases. That's almost 80% of our entire portfolio we've renewed over the past 2 years. Prevented a property from moving out. The average rent on these properties is close to $1,500. Well, you look at 2,661 renewals last year, and if the average rent is $1,500, and I could keep first month's rent if all of them were to go vacant, for me, and I've got the old school calculator here, make sure I get this right, 2,661 times $1,500, as a company, we could have made, I don't know if you can read that number there, $3,992,000. And that would have flowed straight to our bottom line. We would have paid expenses out of that. We would have paid our team that rents our houses for us. But we chose not to make that money. We chose instead to renew the home. We get a small fee, not on every one of those, but on a lot of those, we get a small fee, certainly not this level, and instead keep that $9 million in the pockets of our owners. That helped us to send out $85 million last year in net rental payments. That's the highest we've ever paid out in a calendar year. And we feel like we're positioned well to pay out $100 million in 2023. So if you're keeping score at home and kind of like, hey, where are we at right now? As a company, we feel strong that we're going to renew somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 leases this year. Last year, some of those 3,000 that we renewed back in 2021, they're going to start coming back up for renewal here in 2023. We'll work diligently and hard to get those renewed. Here's a stat for you. Out of the renewals, okay, we know that rents were going up this year, and they continue to be strong throughout the year, and we needed to make them strong. There was some room for catch up for us because we don't do big bumps. We don't do get them out of the house and then bump the rent up real high and reoccupy it. That's just not how we prefer to act as a management company. We advise our clients to, if you have a paying resident in there, even if they struggle here or there, or even if they pay their rent every month, but they pay it on the 15th, so be it. It's collected rent. You have a resident that is paying. We have to deal with the struggle of making sure they pay by the 15th, which we're happy to do. It's what you pay us to do. But the reality is this: if you have a paying resident in, don't push them out. We will gradually get rents where they need to be. Last year, on all renewed leases, the increase in rent was 12% on average. 12%. That is a remarkable number. Now, here's another statistic. Why we choose not to force a move out. We did have move outs last year. There were, I think it was right at 1,000. My number's going to be slightly off. I think it was around 1,050 move outs. I know it was right around that number. 1,050 properties went vacant last year. Out of those 1,050, when we bring them back to market and re-rent them, the average increase in rent was 11.4%. So we actually were more successful at raising the rent of an occupied property than we were raising the rent of a property that had a move out, a vacancy. So it doesn't always pay off to force a move out. Sometimes it pays off to keep a resident in there that's paying, and let us work with making sure they pay every month. I want to touch on a topic real quick. I believe that, in fact, I know that we are successful greater than 80% of the time of having a resident that signs a 2-year lease complete that lease in full. That means that 2 out of every 10 experience a move out at some point during that 2-year lease. Is that unacceptable? No. But is it 100%? Did we bat 1,000% on that? No. There's room for improvement when and where we can. We as a company recognize that, and we want to get that. But I want to make sure that you guys, as you're watching and listening, that we don't give this false sense of hope. Too often, we may paint a picture that's too rosy. And so therefore, when there is a move out, or when there is a vacancy, or when there is a maintenance issue, or an ice storm, I'm literally looking at ice on every tree outside my window as I'm sitting here in Memphis, Tennessee. This generally does not happen. But this ice storm may cause some headaches and issues for some of us as owners. And that's just part of it. That's part of the risk we take when we buy real estate. There's nothing that's 100% risk-free. As good as we are, and as good as we want to be, as the standard is so high that we hold ourselves to, it still doesn't mean that there will not be move-outs. As I just told you, there was 1,050 homes that went vacant last year. That number for us represents roughly 15% of our portfolio that experienced a vacancy during the year. I think the number was right around 14%. For me, that is absolutely astounding. If I can maintain a level where 85 to 86% of the homes we manage have zero vacancy during a year, I feel like we're winning. I feel like we're winning big. For those of you that have a vacancy, I'm in your shoes. I own an investment portfolio too. I had vacancy in 2022. It is what it is. Back occupied now and moving forward. So look, nothing's changing from that standpoint with us. I do believe that rents will slow down on their growth this year. I don't know that we're going to be able to get another 12% increase. I just don't think our rents are that far behind. And I think that there's struggle right now. The economy is in a real precarious position. Everything costs more: milk, eggs, bacon, fuel, electricity, everything. Rent is only one piece of the equation for every resident that lives in a house. So we have to be aware of that. The last thing we want to do is try and force rent so high that somebody moves out. So we're going to work really hard with you as our owners, for those of you that are owners that are watching this right now. And if you're a prospective owner, we're going to work really hard with our group of investors to hold down their costs, to try and prevent move-outs when and where we can, to try and get a growth in rents when and where we can, and look for opportunity to increase your return by being more efficient, and allowing a higher return by a higher rent when and where we can. Let's see here. What else did we have? We had in last year in 2022, we had 233 investors buy their first house. Those investors bought on average 1.5 properties during the 12 months. So we sold right at just under 360 homes to that group of investors. Our existing clients, those who had been with us, for years past, or maybe even joined during the year, they purchased 65% of our sales last year. We had 885 sales close. That particular group of investors, again, they bought right at 660 of our houses last year. 233 were sold to a first-time investor buying. Look, even in a year where there's struggle, there is great demand. We started doing some things as a company, and we're perfectly aware. We understand that we need to do everything we can to help anybody looking to buy real estate, to assist when and where we can. If that's, assisting with closing costs or adding some form of incentive to help them hold their costs to get in down. If we need to look at rents, we're perfectly willing to try and assist when and where we can to help investors get going forward. We just know that's part of the process right now. But here's what I wanted to make sure I emphasized, that as investors, we have to be really, really strict right now. I've had a lot of opportunity end of last year and even starting off right into this year to invest into opportunities that have a lot of shiny objects hanging all from like diamonds dazzling, dripping off of them. All these, come invest in this investment. We've got all these incentives and all these different little layers of sweeteners we're going to add to this deal to get you to come in and buy. And as a smart, experienced investor, and I'm going to add both of those, I'm going to call myself both of those things. I recognized I ran my numbers. I looked at the value I was receiving from them as a service provider. And ultimately, I've been really stingy. I have not moved forward on any investments based strictly on inducements, based strictly on somebody giving me something. I've looked at the underneath any type of enticement. What's the service I am getting? Now at REI Nation, and you guys hear this all the time, and I'm not trying to do an infomercial here, but I'm just going to tell you that we're just hyper focused on the experience. It's why we haven't freaked out and tried to push each and every person that comes through to us to buy a house. No, we're still looking for portfolio investors. Somebody comes in and says, I only want one house, I'm just interested in buying one house, we're probably not a good fit for them. And we know that. Now, do we want to grow sales? Absolutely. We're also business owners. We want to do well, but we're not in a position where we need to really reach and get desperate for who it is we want to sell property to and who it is we want to do business with. We're still looking for investors that say, hey, underneath everything, there's this really high level of value that gets provided by REI Nation. Not everybody finds value in it. We get that. But those investors that say, I value the customer service. I value the fact that your team calls us every month. I was just on the phone a little while ago with an investor that owns 7 houses with us. And it was so interesting in the conversation with him. He said something I hadn't really heard yet about some of our customer service team. He said that, and he was talking about Cindy McCreary, and who just recently retired. We're so happy for Cindy to move on to that next stage of what she's doing. And it's a loss for us as a team because she was such, just a dynamic, great personality around here. But he said she carried herself with such poise. He was like, she was unflappable. And I loved the way he described her. He was like, as providing customer service to me, I had plenty of issues. I had expenses. I had move-outs. I had all kinds of things. But she never was fazed. It's like she never came to me with these sob stories of I'm sorry and this is so bad. She always like, this is exactly what's happening. And this is exactly what we do to get this back online as fast as possible. And he's like, I appreciated that she never came to me and had to be all, sob story or like apologize. He's like, she was unflappable. She knew that you guys provided great value. Again, I'm not trying to do the infomercial. That's what we provide. So as a company, we're going to keep focusing on that and keep trying to attract investors that are focused to that. As an investor on your side, don't get caught up in shiny object syndrome. Don't get caught up in, what am I, what do you get? Are you giving me, closing costs? Are you discounts? Are you, guarantee me this and guarantee me that? Because a lot of people out there are doing that. And we've, as I just said a few minutes ago, we've certainly worked with investors here and there. We did an end of the year thing. If you bought a house before the end of the year where we were doing, I think it was called 2 for 2022, where we were doing 2% closing costs and 2% management fees. That was a first for us. We've never done that before. But look, it worked well and it got us introduced into a few investors, but we had that conversation with them that this is not, don't buy because of this. This is an incentive, sure, but buy because you value what you're getting. And it's not the house. The house is the house is the house. What you're getting is our company, our management. Super psyched about that and still believe that we do it better than anybody. So what I do with my notes, looking around here, I put my notes somewhere. I got so ramped up and excited. I can wing it. So that's kind of my quick little update on where we are for the year. I know we've got a couple of questions in here, which I'm fixing to be given by my producer in 1 second. But before I get there, I wanted to tell y'all something. If you're not watching the YouTube channel and not seeing it, I think we even posted it in here, but I started to do a book club. I like to read, so this isn't like it's a big deal for me. I released my first book last week. I've got my second book that we're getting ready to record. It's called Set for Life. This was written by Scott Trench. He's the CEO of Bigger Pockets. I think the forward in this is provided maybe by Josh Dorkin. I didn't read the forward. I just went straight to the book, who was the founder of Bigger Pockets. Look, I'm excited to share this with you guys along with a lot of other books. My dad walked in a couple of weeks ago with a Jeff Bezos book, and I don't know that I'm going to do this in the group. This may be just an extra, but this one right here called Invest and Wander. This is every investor letter that Jeff Bezos has written. This is really good. I mean, I've learned so much about communication from reading this book. So I'm excited. I may end up sharing that with you guys. I've got another book here called How to Invest in Real Estate. This is going to be part of the book club. The rest of them, they're over in my bookshelf right now. But I'm excited to be doing that this year. I have never read Invest in Real Estate by Josh Dorkin and Brandon Turner, and I've never read Set for Life by Scott Trench. I'm friends with all these guys. I've known them for years. But I decided that not everybody on my in the group or even that consumes content that we put out is a experienced investor. A lot of times there may be brand new first time investors that would appreciate me reading Set for Life, which is really more for early in life investors who are looking for financial freedom and telling them what I think about it, because I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I turned 50 in 2022, so I'm this book Set for Life may be a little bit geared towards people that are younger than me, but I'm going to review it anyway and let you guys know what I think about it. Okay, so I think I have a couple of questions. Am I right? Oh, you're going to let me read these? Just to prove to you guys that I did turn 50, I have to put my readers on. All right, so a question that came in says, I'm curious to know if there's been a significant increase in tenant defaults and evictions in the Memphis market, as well as how evictions are handled. Okay, so no, number one. I believe that for us as a company, we have not seen this significant increase in evictions, although we are telling investors, as we always have, but we and I don't know that this has even been an increase, but I just know that we've actively discussed the fact that we need to use the filing for eviction as a piece of our process to make sure that residents hold to account to what they have agreed to do, which is pay this X amount of rent on time in return for a service from us as a management company on behalf of the owner. So sometimes what we have to do is we have to move forward on that, alerting the authorities, alerting the court system that there might be a future issue here. Doesn't mean we have to move forward with it. Doesn't mean we even have to go to court on it. But it is imperative sometimes that we put that onto the docket and we put that onto the public record that there could be an issue here. No, we're seeing, as far as collections are concerned, we're still collecting roughly 97 to 97.5% of billable rent every single month. We're not seeing any significant slowdowns in when that rent is collected. There is still, as there always has been, a process of collecting rent through the month. There are still a percentage of of residents that pay multiple payments through the month. They're not a first of the month payer, and then there's that percentage that are. We have not seen any significant increase in late payers. We have not seen an increase in default no pays. But we, again, there was a time when, of course, the courts weren't even open. There was also a time when we didn't necessarily have to use filing for eviction, whether we're going to move forward or not, as a piece of our tool. I mean, it was something that we've had there, but we didn't have to use it as much. I can certainly check for you and see if that's something that's being employed more now. I do know that we're not seeing it play out in more evictions in any of our markets, but all the markets are reacting super similar. I mean, it's very much right in line with where it has been over the last 3 to 4 years as far as how many of our residents are paying on time, how many of them are paying on time, but also having to make payments through the month. How many of them may not be paying and then fall behind a full month? The percentages remain remarkably similar across all markets, and they have been for the last couple of years. But that's a great question. If you have more to that question, feel free to talk to your customer service rep and ask if you want to know more details. If you have any particular situation, of course, you can always reach out to us, and we'll do anything we can to help if we need to answer more of that for you. All right. Okay. I think that this question has been asked, and maybe I haven't answered this one properly, and I think he's probably going to say that is correct. He's asked before, and we haven't gotten the answer. So I want to make sure we put this answer in here. We are going to share, and my team that's watching and listening, I want to share non-recourse lenders that we currently work with today in this video. Mr. Brown is asking that question. I believe you may have asked that question even on a YouTube video that I did. It was a comment on a YouTube video asking me that. So I apologize because second I saw that, I recognized that's been asked before. So we'll make sure we get those out there. I know that, and I don't know the name of the companies, but I know the guys who run them. So rather than share their names, which will mean nothing, we will get the names of the companies in there for you to be able to use. Because look, there's a strategy that I'm seeing employed. Of course, I talked about this 6 months ago, but it continues to go. If you used your self-directed IRA, if you used any non-recourse purchasing, if you reached well beyond your 10 and now you're doing some creative financing on your properties, and if you did that and you've had your properties longer than 5 years, you most likely have an extraordinary amount of equity. You may also have deferred maintenance or have even CapEx issues that are coming up that may make it a really good time to look to sell, take some chips off the table, capture the greatest return you can, and then inside your IRA, redeploy either into brand new houses or more houses, a larger portfolio. If you're using non-recourse financing, you may be able to 1031 exchange and then build an even bigger portfolio. I'm all about, I think that any time in the market cycle and just about any city, there's always opportunity. What I'm looking for is fundamentals. I'm looking to own good properties with high quality management that are in high demand. I know if I stay in there, my return is going to fluctuate up and down. I will have years where I'll have, especially due to interest rates, I may have less income, but I'm building greater wealth over time by making sure that my money's not sitting idle. And so, I know that wasn't exactly the question that was asked. He wants the lenders. Let's make sure we get him in there. I really appreciate the 2 questions. Thanks for joining me here as I jumped on real fast. We're real big on the performance of our property management company. They are a phenomenal group. They do a hell of a job. And property management is not easy. Not only is it not easy, it's generally not fun. But this is a group that, as I said, manages just shy of 8,000 houses, and we do a hell of a job at it. And it's not we. When I say we, I don't mean me. I mean there are really good teammates behind me that they're just top notch. They come in, they love what they do, they love working with the company, they love the atmosphere, they love the culture of us, and they know that we're not here to take advantage of anybody, owner or resident. We're here to provide a great property that an owner owns for a resident. But that resident, we want to collect their payment and make sure that the owner gets a great return for providing that great property. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I will be back on here. I'm going to try and go live more often, as I've said this before. You're going to see my videos on YouTube. You're going to read, I've got my book club. We do other videos that we do. We've got the weekly market, what's it called? The video the Investor Blueprint. If you hear it, you will recognize that that's not my voice. That is done by another great team member here for us who provides that weekly Investor Blueprint. So we're trying to put out a lot of content that just helps you guys as investors. Appreciate all of your interacting with it. Like it, share it, subscribe to us, and we will see you next time that I go live. Until then, if you have comments, leave them. Happy to interact with you, and we'll see you next time I go live. Take care, everybody.